Scientific Society, serving as the chair of Wearable Sensor Technical Committee and an associate member of Wearable Biomedical Sensor and System Technical Committee. Today, his topic is wearable sensors and unobstructive technology for physiological monitoring, application and challenge. Sir, you can proceed.
Okay, so thank you so much for the kind words and the invitation. I hope that the slides are clearly visible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so good morning everyone, and thanks for being here this morning. I'd like to thank again Professor Mansharma for giving me the opportunity to join this event on innovation in healthcare infrastructure in artificial intelligence and sensor technology, and to talk about our work at the Lab of Measurements and Environmental Instrumentation at the University of Roma. Today I'm going to talk about wearable sensors and in general unobtrusive technologies for biomedical applications, and with a particular focus on the design of the measurement systems, the importance of meteorological characteristics of wearable sensors, and lastly on applications of those technologies in the biomedical. My research at UCBM focuses on the development and application of innovative technologies for biomedical application and biomedical monitoring and diagnostics. So my work spans from the design, characterization and application of wearable sensor, adopting various working principles and factors, to nearable technologies, so technologies that are able to capture information from the user, from the body, without being worn, like, for example, smart mattress or sound-based systems, up to contactless systems, more specifically webcam-based, so RGB cameras-based methods for mainly cardiorespiratory monitoring. Lastly, in the field of thermal measurement, I'm interested in AI-assisted tools for measuring temperature distribution and damage estimation during hyperthermal treatment, typically used for cancer removal. Across all the project, my goal is generally to enable more accessible, accurate, and user-friendly healthcare technologies. Getting to the talk, let me right now to introduce the outset of my talk from here. I will give you an overview of wearable and unobtrusive scenarios and even the market, especially in the context of the actual causes of death and chronic diseases. We will explore the requirements for designing a successful technology and the expected functionalities in the next future. We will see the potentiality of the actual wearable and hearable technologies in the biomedical context. And then I move to selected use cases I want to focus on. Within each use case, we see the context, the requirements for the specific biomedical application, and how it works on system integration. And lastly, I will conclude with some insights for future directives. So I would like to start from those kind of data. So of the 60 millions that worldwide in 2017, more than half are due to the top 10 causes, like ischemic, heart disease, and stroke are obviously the worst biggest killers, accounting for combining 15 million deaths in 2017. And these diseases have remained the lead causes of death globally in the last 15 years. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease claimed more or less 2 million lives in 2016, while lung cancer, along with trachea and bronchus cancer, caused roughly 2 million deaths. Lower respiratory infections remain the most deadly communicable disease, causing 3 million deaths worldwide in 2016. Let's now take a look at the top chronic disease in adults. On the right, 80% of adults 16 years old and older have at least one condition, while 68% have two or more. So you probably have a parent or a grandparent who is managing a condition right now, or perhaps you are managing one yourself. With this kind of odds, you might wonder if there is and even something that you can do to prevent the onset of a condition or make managing an existing condition easier. The answer is yes, because in the majority of these conditions, wearable technology and in general continuous monitoring are an opportunity, represent an opportunity. Wearable sensor and intrusive technologies may help understanding population health of a specific area of the globe by gathering digital biomarkers, vital signs, or kinematical variables. And these can lead to better explain, influence, and or predict health outcome of the single patient, or better help to gain fundamental insights into the disease origins. So wearable technologies are expected to contribute in the next future and are still contributing now to personalize the patient care. And if we want to analyze a little bit more the wearable device market, so according to a recent report of Fortune Business, the global wearable medical device market size is projected to reach 140,000 millions by 2026, and rapidly increasing prevalence of chronic disease, superior treatment and diagnostic outcomes, and increasing integration of technology and healthcare is accelerating the acceptance of the wearable medical devices across the globe, especially in North America and Europe. Diagnostic and monitoring wearable medical devices are projected to hold a significant portion of the global market share during the forecasted period. Let's go into a more technical details on wearable and wearable technology. So to perform a measurement, each wearable or wearable device must record a physical or chemical measure, which can be directly related to the phenomenon of interest, like for example the airflow to measure the respiratory pattern, or a consequence, as for example the pixel movement in an image caused by the chest wall movement during the breathing activity. A wearable or general wearable typically includes all these blocks. From the sensor to the front-end electronics required to process the data before its storage to log. Data must be transmitted or streamed not necessarily in real time to a set device. We can call this device like a remote location. The remote location receives a digital signal. It can reprocess the data, perform a dedicated and optimized storage of data, and eventually transmit data to other nodes or to the wearable itself. And the remote location response can act exclusively on the wearable device parameters and preferences, or can control wearable parameters with direct consequences on the user, so with a sort of feedback. As for example, by acting on so-called metamorphic characteristics. An example is the compression of a t-shirt on the user controlled by a remote device to improve the measurement accuracy of the wearable device itself. If we want to develop a wearable and in general a technology, firstly we have to have a look into account physical attributes and functional attributes. So each of them must fulfill specific application of interest. So a wearable must be compliant with the body, so it must be lightweight and shape conformable. It should be invisible, like for example objects that are hidden in common objects of life. It should be a mattress in the case of wearable, or a case or the t-shirt or socks in the case of wearables, just to increase their use and acceptability to the end user. And we call these also aesthetically pleasing. In terms of functional attributes, attention must be paid in developing multifunctional and multi-sensor system, where more sensors can be used at the same time in the same scope, so to measure the same quantity, or to discard or reduce undesired influencing factors, like for example motion activity. And lastly, obviously, adequate sensing elements must be chosen to be much responsive as possible to the physical or chemical phenomenon of interest, and to be able to observe the phenomenon in the whole bandwidth of interest. And a little bit of story. So if we look at a portable device available in the past, we can observe interesting objects such as glucose meter, not very portable glucose meter, or other devices able to measure a quantity at a single time point. Today, the wearable devices for heart rate monitoring and respiratory factor measurement, but in the future we expect wearables that allow us to measure biomarker or emotional physical states necessary to make medical or pharmacological decisions even independently, and all these parameters continuously on time and over time. So in the medical field, wearable and in general continuous monitoring through contactless and wearable technology will promote a paradigm shift. They are already promoting this shift from the medicine of the past, in which one treatment fits all, to the medicine of the future, characterized by a personalized diagnostics. So we can make an example, an easy example, with an anti-tumor drug. So today, or even in the past, the same drug is prescribed to all the patients with the same tumor. So the therapy is exactly the same. As a result, we have a group of patients who we observe positive effects, a group of patients who do not show either positive or negative effects to the drug, and a small group that has side effects or advanced events. In the future, the diagnosis of biomarkers and the use of wearable devices for monitoring physiological parameters and vital signs will have two main effects. So the first effect is to guide medical doctors to prescribe the best treatment that is patient-specific, and at the other hand, to continuously monitor the effects of the treatment to eventually change in time, the time and kind of the treatment itself. In this way, the number of adverse events will be reduced and the positive effect of the treatment of the drug maximized. Great. So wearable technologies and in general unobtrusive monitoring can be beneficial in monitoring numerous activities and vital signs. So joint kinematics and motion factor can be monitored to promote the physical activity, but also to boost accuracy in physiological data recording during, for example, sport activity, during body movements. While from a physiological point of view, vital signs like heart rate, respiratory rate, body temperature, blood pressure can be registered with different wearable solutions and in extremely different scenarios. So we can expect to see wearable and obtrusive technology from bed in the hospital to monitor a bedridden patient in intensive care, to a worker while lifting a load or to work on a computer, to an athlete during running. So all these scenarios are extremely different in terms of influencing factors and required data accuracy. And depending on the specific application, wearable devices can be worn at different levels of the body, directly integrated into fabric, so as smart t-shirt, or dedicated hardware, like for example, instrumented wristband or skin patches. Typically, wearables are connected to a mobile device for streaming or saving data, and how to show the data is fully part of the design of a wearable and the general knowledge of the technology. So we see here an example, an app of a wristband that counts step and other parameters, like for example heart rate. In the app, the manufacturer provided messages that always encourage you to do better. So a lot of manufacturers, general researchers use a positive strategy that can be exploited in occupational settings as well as in the sports field. But a still open point is related to the data management and communication language, since no standard um, around the world currently exists. So IEEE has established a technical commission to work on a standardizing protocol for providing and using data and metadata provided by sensors and mobile applications. Standardization of mobile health data will make data aggregation across multiple mobile devices and health sources easier and more accurate. And we expect to reduce the cost of using mobile health data to make biomedical discoveries and improve health and manage disease. So the aim is to provide specifications for validating data, pulling data from large and popular devices manufacturer, store and share data with secure protocols, with others, process and visualize data. So if you are interested here, you can find the link at the web page. And now I want to present you some targeted biomedical use cases in which wearable and obtrusive devices can make the difference. All the devices I will present you are the result of several collaborations all around the world that we have with other international and national universities, research groups, and leading companies in the field. Moreover, I want to highlight our strong collaboration with clinical partners who helped us in designing and testing the proposed wearable solution. So we will see how wearables can be used to allow the remote monitoring of breathing on a range of users and during different daily activities, but not only. So smart t-shirt might be beneficial to detect breathing abnormalities, overcoming actual technologies and continuous complicated clinical exams. And then we will move on sports field, seeing how wearable devices can be useful to evaluate performance of athletes, from runner to archery. And lastly, I will show you the use of mechanical sensors attached to the thorax for recording mechanical recorded vibrations and technological solutions to improve the classification of patients with a particular cardiovascular disease, and in particular the aortic stenosis, using artificial intelligence. So regarding the first use case, the remote respiratory monitoring, substantial evidence indicates that the respiratory rate or respiratory frequency is a very informative vital signs. It is an early indicator of physiological deterioration and predictor of potentially seriously adverse events. Specifically, the respiratory rate is an important predictor of cardiac arrest and of intensive care unit admissions, as well as an independent prognostic marker for risk assessment after acute myocardial infarction. So besides its fundamental in the early detection of the risk of the occurrence of dangerous conditions such as sleep apneas, respiratory depression in post-surgical patients, and sudden infant death syndrome. Furthermore, COVID-19 guidelines suggest measuring the resting respiratory rate to inform triage decision, diagnosis, prognosis, and be used as a criterion for the intensive care unit admission and for the recognition of COVID-19 patient deterioration. So for sure, we can say that respiratory rate is overlooked, but still under-recorded. To develop a wearable device that is able to continuously and remotely monitor the respiratory pattern and then to extract the respiratory rate, an easy-to-wear, comfortable, and obtrusive device is required. So it must be provide a greater freedom of movement to the user, allowing continuous monitoring in an unstructured environment. So now look at the animation. So the chest wall expands and contracts regularly during the respiration. So the breathing activity can be monitored by registering the output changes of a strain sensing elements if the sensing element perfectly adhere to the chest wall. Among others, conductive sensors, for example, resistive sensor or strain sensor, and fiber optic sensor can be used and easily integrated within textile of a smart tissue. So the continuous sampling at minimum 30 Hz of sampling rate is required to provide adequate information to retrieve further respiratory rate and to perform analysis in both the time and frequency domain. And lastly, to carry out continuous monitoring, our front-end electronics must provide robust and low power, hopefully low power communication. And this is one of our solutions, so a multi-sensory garment. This kind of garment embeds 6 fiber-resistive sensing elements in 3 elastic adjustable bands. Each conductive sensor is obtained by casting with a laser knitted fabric composed by silver and spandex in a rectangular shape, and each band can be regulated into anthropomorphic shape to fit with different anthropometry of the user. From a technical point of view, when the strain is applied to the conductive sensing elements, a change in the resistance takes place, and all the 6 elements are connected to a custom-made electronic board to process the output in loco, and a LiPo battery provided with an onboard charger, allowing more or less 12 hours of continuous monitoring. Moreover, the smart garment embeds also a small magnetoinertial unit to record the acceleration of the body, useful to detect and recognize activities like walking and other kinds of activities, and angular velocity. So with a gyroscope, important to quantify the dorsal rotation during daily activities. And data lastly streamed via Bluetooth to a laptop or to an app on a smartphone, in general to a mobile device to record the rotation. Algorithms for the analysis of respiratory signal are required to further process the data. So on the left, we can see the output of the 6 sensor signal together with the reference signal, reference respiratory signal collected by a chronometer. So in the last 2 subplots, the gyroscope signal was useful to retrieve information about the user movement and posture changes. So if you go to the right, in the frequency domain, we can evaluate the average respiratory rate by analyzing the spectrum of the signal, using strategy to eventually exclude some sensor signal more affected by the noise. And here a detailed view of a signal recorded from a user during quiet breathing and during tachypnea, so fast breathing, abnormally rapid breathing that is predictor of pathology or anxiety. So by using specific algorithms, we developed specific algorithms pretty articulated. We are able to determine the duration of each breath. So we work at the breath by breath level, the expiratory period, and the so-called breath by breath respiratory rate. And Blunt Altman on the right reveals excellent results with bias calculated as the mean of differences less than 0.1 breaths per minute in the range between 10 and 30 breaths per minute. However, over the several studies we carried out even on sports, in the sports field, surely algorithms can make the difference. So in this work, we evaluated the performance of both time and frequency methods for processing the data, respiratory data, during two different sport exercises, namely increasing incremental tests, where the respiratory rate of the volunteer was paced by a metronome running on a smartphone. The respiratory rate paced by the metronome increased from 20 breaths per minute to 75 breaths per minute in an exponential fashion. And during the other exercise called HIIT, so high intensity interval training, consisting of 8 repetitions of 20 seconds of work and 40 seconds of recovery. So a loaded cycle. Looking at the plots, depending on the window length selected for the analysis, from the breath-by-breath basis to windows length of 30 seconds, the analysis in the frequency domain may cause losses of information, especially when rapid changes in the respiratory rate are observed. On the right, when comparing the time course of respiratory rate provided by the manufacturer in black, algorithms with the manufacturer algorithms, with that of the reference device during the incremental test, we observed a substantial underestimation of the respiratory rate values higher than 40 breaths per minute. And this difference is even more pronounced during the high interval training, where the alternation of work and recovery introduce an error on the system, and the manufacturer algorithm doesn't describe very well the respiratory rate values provided during the time course. In conclusion, while your device may be excellent from a technical point of view, okay, from a sensory point of view, at last for respiratory monitoring, the choice and the validation of the data processing play a crucial role. Well, we can move to the next use case. So we have seen that normal breathing usually involves synchronized motion of the upper and lower, the upper thorax and the abdomen in healthy subjects. However, some patients may present abnormal breathing, experience an non-optimal use of muscle, both thoracic and abdominal muscle, which may lead to musculoskeletal pain and breathing dysfunction. Typical consequences of these pathologies are the time desynchronization between the thorax and abdomen, and some patients require respiratory rehabilitation to promote the right use of the respiratory muscles and to prevent adverse future chronic diseases. So, to analyze the breathing biomechanics, typically the movements of the external motion capture system are required. However, wearables can be beneficial at this point. Encouraged by our medical partner, the Università di Roma, and our polyclinic, we have designed a multi-sensor t-shirt embedding, in this case, another technology, fiber optic sensor, and in particular, fiber vibrating sensor. So why choosing fiber vibrating sensors? We choose fiber vibrating sensors primarily because they are well suited for distributed sensing, which implies that multiple sensing points can be distributed along a single fiber because they are intrinsically safe, so no electrical power are necessary to work. They are small size, they are lightweight. And in addition, they can be integrated into composite or fixed directly on the surface of the object to monitor without affecting strongly the meteorological performance. So especially in these scenarios, the sensor position is a key point since we want to analyze small strain at the level of the chest wall in several points. And the position of the sensing elements on the backside were defined after a pretty original biomechanical analysis of the chest wall movements So we carry out data collection during while breathing and exercise on healthy volunteers using a motion capture system as a reference system. So multiple cameras and market-based analysis to analyze the chest wall strains at the chest wall level. And at the end, we have identified 12 measurement sites as shown in the picture. So 12 sensors were inscribed into two fibers, into two fiber optics. And the two fiber optics were glued on the textile with adhesive silicone rubber. And here on the left, the t-shirt we have developed. So it allows to record the local strain of the thorax and abdomen, both left and right side, and to stream data in real time in the lab view environment. So we have carried out extensive clinical trial to determine the accuracy in the respiratory rate estimation and thoraco-abdominal synchronization and participation during breathing activity. And we can appreciate the output changes of the t-shirt against the reference signal recorded with a motion capture system. So in the bar plot on the right, we can see the estimated contributions compared against those retrieved by the reference device and their variation assessed with the standard deviation. So these features, these good performances in the breathing biomechanics open up further usage of the proposed textile in wide application in ambulatory and sports science settings. A completely different use case scenario is the sports field. This is generally my favorite. Why? Because on athletes, respiratory rate and heart rate are closely associated with perceived exertion in a variety of exercise conditions. So they are strongly associated with the intensity of the sport gesture. In this context, respiratory and cardiac rate are the most interesting vital signs to be monitored. So respiratory rate is known for responding very rapidly to abrupt changes of the work rate, which occur during intermittent exercise, for example, like in the previous slide, while heart rate provides an objective measurement on how hard your body is working, okay, on the burn calories and so on. So the key point when we want to develop a wearable device intended for the sport monitoring is to take into account different sport specificity as the motion artifacts and signal bandings. So adaptive algorithms could be used to maximize artifacts, for example. And we have focused our attention on different activities, proposing different solutions, among others, for indoor cycling, running, archery, horse racing, and lastly, in the last year, on the soccer professional players. So in the sport field, the form factor, the type of sensor, the number of sensors, and their position strongly differ in this specific application. So for example, in indoor cycling, the use of flow sensor positioned at the level of the nose could be beneficial, but must be avoided in other sports like horse racing. On archers, adjustable strap embedding sensor are preferred. So why? Because we have carried out a survey on professional archers, and one sensor on archers are enough to detect body movements, respiratory rate, and cardiac activity. But a different approach must be used for runners, where a magnetic inertial unit is needed to reduce the motion artifact of wearable devices signals, and where multi-sensor approach is preferable to obtain more accurate, more robust respiratory data. So I've selected just two specific sport applications, and the first one is probably the first devices we developed a few years ago. So it's an example of a net-mounted wearable devices we have developed for measuring the respiratory rate and cardio activity during indoor cycling by using the headphones. So the user can listen music and at the same time to be monitored. In this case, technically speaking, a flow sensor connected to a soft catheter is installed under the nose, and we can see that pressure fluctuations during respiratory in black and during expiratory periods in red. And from two consecutive peaks of the signal, it's possible to calculate the respiratory period, and from the respiratory period, the respiratory rate. And Landau-Altman analysis show excellent performances in the breath-by-breath respiratory analysis with deep limit of agreement, always lower than 1 breath per minute in a very wide range of respiratory frequency range, between 10 to 60 breaths. So to capture respiratory data and movement of the user while doing sports, even outdoor, we developed another wearable devices, namely smart face mask, embedding different kinds of sensors. So a thermistor, so a temperature sensor, is embedded in a soft polymer to capture the rapid changes of temperature at the level of the nose and the mouth, and caused by the breathing activity. Raw data are corrected by information provided by a second sensor connected to the board, able to capture and compensate the environmental temperature. And lastly, into the device there is a motion module providing linear acceleration along the three axes, and then used to capture acceleration and cadence during cycling or running and soccer. So we are now applying these technologies to professional soccer in Italy, where there is an unmet need to capture multiple respiratory variables from multiple users at the same time and outside the laboratory. Although the design of the mask may look easy, some technological choices as the shape, the material, the pull-out module can be disconnected and clean. So all these choices have been demonstrated to be extremely efficient in capturing excellent quality respiratory data in both indoor and outdoor environments with different environmental temperature and humidity levels. Another approach is to develop something that can be worn at the level of the user. So in this study, we propose a different approach, more for runners. So a user-tailored multi-sensor flexible t-shirt continuously monitor chest wall deformation. So in this case, the sensor size and position of the t-shirt had been optimized on the user by analyzing the chest wall movements recorded with a motion capture system in a controlled environment. And then they developed sensors. To develop sensor, we employed a conductive piezoresistive textile, so basically a textile doped with nanoparticles, and the sensor were embedded into the t-shirt by means of a polymeric matrix. So we use a very famous polymeric matrix, namely Ecoflex 0030, with a 3 mm thickness to reduce the influence of even of external factors such as the moisture and temperature, and to improve the robustness of the sensor itself. After the integration, the sensor were meteorologically tested by characterizing the sensor to both static tensile loads and cyclic loading and unloading cycling to investigate the static sensitivity and the hysteresis over consecutive cycles of loading and unloading. And lastly, we tested the t-shirt while performing various activities like sitting, standing, walking, running, and stairs. And the second application, okay, so in this case, even if the quality of data are pretty good, we are also studying different approaches, working just on the collective data to improve the quality of estimated respiratory rate, but working on a signal side point of view. So basically, we are developing a sort of signal quality index that is very common in the ECG measurement, but less common in the respiratory rate field, to improve the estimation and accuracy in the breath-by-breath respiratory rate during sport and exercise. So as you can see here, we can collect even noisy data, but by processing noisy data with very small windows, moving windows over time, we can identify a sort of signature, the breathing signature of the user, obtained by averaging all the breaths in a window to generate a template, and then by using basically a correlation coefficient, we can exclude some breath and maintaining other breaths. What's the effect? The effect is to obviously exclude some breaths, but we demonstrated that by using correlation threshold lower than 0.8, in particular 0.8, we can improve the mean absolute percentage error, so we can improve the performance of the devices by excluding only a few percentage of the data. It means that by eliminating just the data, the accuracy improves up to 20%. Okay, so this approach is pretty interesting in the sports field. And then we are also working on the photoprismography from an end user point of view. So as you know, probably the photoprismography is undoubtedly the most widely used media for measuring and rating big wearable devices, such as the one shown in the figure, okay, so the Brisbane. Thanks to its easy to use and the ability to be integrated into smartwatches and fitness tracker, the PPG has made heart rate monitoring more accessible to millions of people. However, these devices do not always guarantee high accuracy, not only because the motion artifacts that can be very well compensated. So the image highlights the result of one of our clinical studies, the last studies, investigating the impact of changes in the peripheral circulation on the signal flow. So basically, during the physical activity, the body experiences a decrease in the total peripheral resistance, which affects pulse pressure variation. And this variation in the pulse pressure may mask fluctuation in the blood flow, making under the photoprismography sensor to accurately detect heartbeats. So as you can see in the graph, while the ECG is reported in black, while the ECG provides a consistent heart rate measurement during the whole trial, the optical photoprismography sensor exhibits sometimes delays and inconsistencies. And this time lag between the real-time cardiovascular changes and the PPG response can lead to underestimation or overestimation of heart rate, affecting the accuracy of the frequency tracking and exceptional. And if we look at the performance during the warm-up, running and recovery, we propose a performance index. So basically, the calculation of the percentage of the heart rate measurement from the PPG-based device falling within plus minus 5 BPM of the value provided by potential devices. And as you can see, during running, so in the case of high motion artifacts, the heart rate is well compensated. So 99% of data are within this interval. But during recovery, this percentage dropped to 42. So it means that those devices should be deeply investigated for measuring the respiratory cardio data during recovery, so during abrupt changes in the heart rate. And in this slide, just few other examples of wearable devices we have developed and tested in sport context. Okay, so for example, T-shirt for runners and archery and so on. Moving on the use case sport, each of us know the importance of cardiac monitoring, especially in chronic diseases and post-diagnosis patients. So in this case, generally, ECG, so the electrocardiography, is used to record the electrical activity of the heart. However, even if the ECG is recorded, the mechanical activity of the heart in terms of opening and closing of the valves is still sufficiently neglected. But if we look at the chest wall movements during their feeding, we can see more vibrations at the level of the skin surface. So a promising alternative during technique, promising alternative technique consists of recording vibrations of the body caused by the mechanical activity of the air. Well, how to record those kind of vibration? Mainly by using fiber optic sensor or other sensor called inertial magnetic inertial units. So in this slide, just a study we carried out last year. So basically, we are investigating the recorded vibration during different activities and during continuous movement. Okay, so we are basically investigating the commercial sensor with outstanding performances in terms of meteorological characteristics and algorithms to automatically retrieve respiratory rate and cardiac rate while moving. And we are so interested in understanding better, since the literature lacks this information, the best sensor axis and the best sensor position. So as you can see in this picture, we found that basically sensor or microvalve are the best sensor, the best position for the sensor for both cardiac and respiratory monitoring. While for axis point of view, since we are using 3 sensor axis, is more problematic. So we are trying to develop a general purpose pipeline to analyze directly the data measured by sensor. This approach works pretty well for cardiac activity, while we are working hard on respiratory activity, because as you can see, if you are seated or lying down or standing, to measure the contributing axis changes. Okay, so in this case, the general purpose algorithm cannot be used. But number speaking, those are our results. So basically, by using a very effective sensor and even cheap sensor, we can achieve outstanding performance, especially in the context of cardiac monitoring. So as you can see, the MAE are always lower than 1.5, even during work. Okay, so this strategy, this pipeline for data analysis can allow us to use the IMU for the first time, even during movement, for cardiac and respiratory monitoring. And since we love those kind of sensor, we started the last year, we started a new topic for the classification of patients with aortic stenosis. So aortic stenosis, very fastly, is among the 3 most common valvular diseases around the world, occurring in about 3% of patients over 75 years of age. And aortic stenosis is caused by the degenerative calcification of valvular cups that causes increasing in the mean pressure gradient between the left ventricle and the aorta. According to the guidelines, the aortic stenosis, severe aortic stenosis, must be measured by using echocardiography and to measure directly into the chambers, into the ventricle and aorta, the pressures. So that's a problem, because if the disease is not detected, it will of course not be treated or treated too late. Unfortunately, late diagnosis and late referral for treatment are very common in aortic stenosis, with tremendous consequences on the outcome and survival of these patients. So in this field, in collaboration with our hospital and our cardiologists, we are investigating a multi-site and multidimensional registration of accelerometers and gyroscope signal induced by cardiac vibration using small magnetic inertial units with sensor intimately attached to the skin. So we are carrying out experiments on both healthy volunteers and patients with severe aortic stenosis, and the multidimensional and distributed signal from the accelerometer and gyroscope are employed to classify aortic patients using various ECG-independent machine learning and deep learning models. Okay, here just a very short picture, and here some interesting results. So in general, we use multiple sensor and multiple dimensional data. So in general, the best performance can be obtained when considering accelerometer data recorded at the mitral valve position, and gyrocardiographic data, so data obtained by gyroscopy, collected in the pulmonary bed. For the other sensor location, considering the gyroscopic data typically allow us to achieve better results than using only the seismographic data. It is therefore evident that selecting the place where to locate the employed inertial sensor has significant effect on the reliability of the performance of the image. And on the right, very shortly, as you can see, accuracies above 95% can be obtained by considering precision made by pulmonary valve and mitral valve positions with an acquisition duration of just 40 seconds. And then the last topic, so during the last 2 years, we put a lot of effort in developing soft and flexible and adaptable and multi-material sensor adaptable to different applications by playing with geometries and materials. So the question is, can we develop soft and flexible sensor adaptable to various applications by adjusting just the geometries and materials? The reply is yes. So this basically an example of a soft pressure sensor with a magnetic working principle. So the working principle is based on the magnetically coupling of elastic material. So there is an old sensor sensitive to magnetic field and a magnet embedded in a shaped elastic material that can be moved under different pressure except on the space. So we basically made different shapes, different chambers, and we made simulations. At the end, we use the system for various applications, both a very fast application like finger tapping to breathing, and as you can see, even for breathing, using different materials, we can achieve different performance. And in all the cases, we can measure deep breathing, fast breathing, and even apneas. Okay, so the apneas are very well identified. Another opportunity is given by the so-called printables. So 3D printed sensor made of conductive filaments, so thermoplastic materials doped with conductive flexible particles dispersed in the insulating polymer. So we have developed, and we are working a lot, developing new sensor and new measuring techniques by printing these conductive filaments with particular printers, leveraging on electrical coupling between layers of sensors. And here, just an example of a pressure sensor, autonomous pressure sensor with good performance in the low pressure sensing range. And again, this sensor has a very excellent, the best rise time, good hysteresis, and excellent performance in measuring both static and dynamic pressure over time. Okay, so we can conclude. I hope to be on time or rest. So during this lecture, we have seen how wearable devices could give information about vital signs and human activities in a wide range of scenarios and users. For sure, the growing use of wearable technologies increase the ability to have more information from the patient and users, and the ability to have large amounts of data that did not exist in the past brings an opportunity to develop new tools with intelligent analysis, with machine learning, with AI, and decision support for use in the clinical and sport practice. So it also opens new door, new possibility for the patient by providing them with more information and decision support, specifically designed for them, for the patient, and empower the end user in managing their own health condition, keeping their autonomy. These new developments drive a change in healthcare delivery models and the relationship between patient and healthcare providers. It raises challenges from the healthcare system now to implement these new technologies and the growing amount of data, information in clinical practice, and also to how to integrate this new data into the clinical workflow of the various healthcare providers worldwide. So the future challenge for healthcare should be on how to use the developed knowledge in a way that will bring added value to both healthcare professionals, healthcare organization, and patients without increasing the workload and the cost of the healthcare service. So, for a wearable technology developers, the challenge is to develop solutions that can be easily integrated and used by professionals considering the existing constraints. That a short advertise. So if you're interested and want to explore more deeply this fascinating field of wearable sensor, please let me to advertise our summer school of wearable sensors that will be held in Rome next July. Just focus on the wearable sensor, soft sensor, flexible sensor on challenges on artifacts. So the wearable sensor all around and application to clinical occupational sports. So the school will be can be attended both in presence in Rome or even at distance with different and affordable prices. Please have a look at the website. So don't hesitate to contact me for further information and we will do the. Before ending the talk, I would like to thank again Professor Sharma for the invitation and all the research group and to all the sponsors that allow us to work on wearables in the last 5 years. Thank you for that.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Carlo. So can we take some questions if participants have?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very happy.
Yeah, if you have any questions, any doubts, please go ahead.
Anybody has any questions? Okay, nobody has any questions. Carlo sir, I'm Hardik Perumal, I'm a PhD student at IITRAM. I have a question that is it possible to have the data which you have used in the use case file for the research? I'm very much interested in seeing the use case file which you have classified the patients of aortic stenosis. So if I'm willing to work on that data, is it possible to have that data? And also I would like to ask you that have you collected, like from where have you collected that? Is it online available or you have took it from some hospital?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, for data sharing is always a problem related just to privacy and regulations. So generally after the study, even for top journal, no? So we are required to share the data, basically the raw data, and we embrace this choice. So associated with the article on aortic stenosis, we publish the raw data of a limited number of patients, surely. So there was like 14 patients. But even if you are interested, you can contact me directly because we are now doing a national trial on a national project. So we were founded last year. We continue recording data on aortic stenosis on both the medium aortic stenosis and severe aortic stenosis, and together with healthy patients, so no cardiovascular disease patients. We are also developing a database with other hemodynamic variables, because at the end, if you want to estimate the aortic stenosis hemodynamic changes, you may need in the model other values, even by the echo, right, by the clinical procedure. So the reply is yes at the end to conclude the question. Yes, some data are already available in the database associated with the article on aortic stenosis. If you want to have additional data, you can directly contact me. We have anonymized data following the strategy required by the European Commission on the data sharing, but can be done, absolutely. So generally, when we publish something, we love to share also the associated data.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, we have one more question.
what will be the battery life and the shelf life of those wearables?
Sorry, didn't understood.
What will be the battery life and the shelf life of those wearable devices that you're using?
I didn't catch it.
Sir, she is meaning to ask that the wearable T-shirt that we have introduced, if it is operated by a battery, what is the battery life or shelf life of that
Yeah,
device, particular
okay.
device?
I got it. Thank you, because the voice was too low. So, in this presentation, I just present you few wearable devices we developed. So the T-shirt made by piezoresistive sensor was one of the first example of multiple sensor embedded in a T-shirt. Okay, because the idea was to collect data from multiple sensors at the same time to reduce the artifacts at the end. Okay, because we use the T-shirt on both patients and athletes. So using just one sensor can be complicated. The last version of the battery, so in the first version of the device streamed the data via Bluetooth. It was extremely time consuming, extremely battery consuming, sorry. It wasn't a Bluetooth range, so basically it was a basic Bluetooth that streamed the data to the laptop. It was good for indoor sports or indoor clinical examination. Not so good, in my opinion, to perform data collection, for example, on athletes. So we changed a little bit the electronics. So now the electronics is more like, can I say, iPods. Okay, so very small, sort of cube. And the data can be streamed in real time via Bluetooth Low Energy. So in this case, the battery can last 72 hours. Or even to reduce the battery consumptions, we have embedded a memory, an onboard memory inside the electronics. So basically, you have to switch on the data recording mode. You can record the data and then download the data at the end of the trial. This is particularly beneficial in the soccer player, since we are doing a very good data collection on soccer players. Soccer players are so distant from the lab. Okay, so the probability to lose the data is more or less 100%. So for this reason, we save the data into the memory and then download the data with our Raspberry Pi. So basically, it's a end-to-end data collection with the sensor. And it is even good in the case you want to monitor multiple subjects at the same time, okay? Because in the sports field, we generally use multiple sensors at the same time. Okay, so for example, up to 10 patients, 10 users can be monitored in the field.
Okay, thank you so much. Also, will it be waterproof? I mean, will the sweat skin? So also, will it be like waterproof? Like if there is the interaction of the sweat, so is it going to affect the sensor?
Sorry?
Will the sweat affect the sensor? I mean, is it waterproof?
Yeah, so it depends on the technology. So the waterproofing depends strongly on the sensor. So if you look at the T-shirt made, the first smart devices based on piezoresistive sensor, I would say no, because the sensors were exposed directly to the environment, and we demonstrated in a partial paper that the use of sideways doped materials can be extremely sensitive to moisture and temperature, external temperature. To fix this problem, we have developed a strategy based on the integration of sensor inside polymers. Okay, for example, hyperelastic materials. So hyperelastic materials doesn't affect so much the mechanical property of the sensor, like the sensor, but reduce the influence of external factors like humidity and temperature up to 90%. So at the end, if we expect to use the T-shirt on athletes, I would probably say better to embed the sensor into the polymeric material. Okay. The main problem is that not all the materials can be embedded in the elastic material because can affect the properties. So, for example, now we are investigating the effects of printed materials based on graphene and graphite on the coupling with elastic material, and some material reacts. So it depends on the sensor. For textile, is pretty good because textile doesn't react with the elastic material. So at the end, you have a flexible sensor, but pretty insensitive to external humidity.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, I have one more question regarding the wearable sensors. So, sir, for let us say some particular use case, we decide to monitor and track data of a particular wearable sensor. And the next step, we decide to train some model for predicting some of the viable aspects and predicting some like diagnosing something or predicting the next steps to be taken. So whenever we make this model and on a later stage we decide to embed it in real time or maybe along with the sensor itself. So sir, we need to what type of optimizations we need to take care of because whenever we are embedding something like predictive model in the sensor, we have limited capacity as of like electricity or the space. So what type of optimizations can we take into consideration in this case?
Yeah. Are you talking about the T-shirt with the for respiratory monitoring, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, we can say that in our group we work on both the levels. So at the level of the sensor and measuring technique development, like the T-shirt. T-shirt was an example of design, optimization, and manufacturing of a device. The second part is the algorithm. I would say that, yeah, I just present you some sketches, but for example, in the, I would say that algorithms and even predicting models depends on the specific field. So for example, we work a lot with sports scientists, so physiologists. So physiologists, for example, are extremely interested in the respiratory rate. Okay. So basically, we are able with this T-shirt to accurately monitor the respiratory rate, but without a model, you have basically the respiratory rate. There are several models can be done. One of the most promising, in my opinion, is related to the estimating the rate of perceived exertion, RPE, which is a very used parameter in the sport science to calculate the perceived exertion. The main problem today is that this kind of parameter is subjective, so you have to fill a sort of form. Okay, it's a questionnaire. The data gathered by the T-shirt or in general by devices can allow to standardize to be more objective in understanding the RP. We are doing something on that, even by using commercially available T-shirt. So another point is how our question was, how is the effect of algorithm on sensor instead of only using sensor? So basically, even if you use some commercially available T-shirt, you can see that the raw data, if web pre-processed and post-processed, can give a lot of information, even better than the information already given by the manufacturer, which is pretty strange. That's the reason why some companies, some manufacturers prefer to give you only the processed data. That's a limitation for the science, and it's a limitation even for end user, like sport scientists. So sport scientists doesn't love merely to generate an algorithm to improve the accuracy. We love it. So for this reason, if you use open devices, like for example the one I show you for the sports science, you can work at the signal level. And working on the signal level may open new approaches. So, for example, a parameter that doesn't have explored so much is the tidal volume. Tidal volume is important for both the clinical practice and also for the sport. Okay, in the sport, generally, the tidal volume is preferred, the mean volume, so the product between the tidal volume and the respiratory rate is preferred to the tidal volume to estimate the real perceived exertion. So if you know from the data, if you can develop a model by using multiple data to have a more vast estimation of the total volume using a wearable devices, should be very good because surely the athletes will be use the device for measuring the respiratory rate, yes, but also to measure the minute volume, and the minute volume is strongly correlated with a lot of other performance indexes in the sport field.
Okay.
To be replied for the questions.
Can we take one more question, Dr. Kalu?
Yeah.
Maybe the last question.
Hello, sir. So, in the presentation made by you, you mentioned that the continuous sampling for the smart tissue works on 30 Hz, and also for the accurate cardiac monitoring system without electrodes works on the 60 Hz. So, my question is that if the subject is monitoring the sensors for a prolonged use, will it affect the subject's body, like the normal functioning of the body?
Yeah, I try to understand the question because the volume was so low, but regarding the sample rate. So, generally, if you want to do a continuous monitoring, the idea is to have the lowest sample rate that allow you to find the parameter of interest. No? So, according to the Shannon equation, basically, if you have a phenomenon centered around increased frequency, you have to collect data at least at 2 times higher, no? The frequency of the parameter. For the respiratory rate, it depends strongly on what you want to see. So, for example, some devices, even commercially available, use a 10S sample rate. That, technically speaking, is good because they reduce the data consumption, data times, okay? Even if you, especially if you use a small memory inside the device, 10x of sample rate should be good to estimate the respiratory rate, but no more. For example, if you want to estimate the volume, 10x of sample rate probably is too low as a sample rate. For the cardiac parameter, again, it depends. So, for example, I saw a lot of people that collect ECG at 1000 Hz. It depends on what you want to see. So, if you want to see some complexes, some specific timing, like the QT interval and so on, it's okay. But for example, if you want just to measure that rate, the error introduced by reducing the sampling frequency, for example, to 50 Hz, is pretty negligible. Okay. So, for example, in this field, we are analyzing the effect of sampling rate on some pipeline useful for machine learning. So, we are working on a new representation of data in the time domain, shifting from the time domain to images. No? So, in this case, for example, if you reduce the sampling rate, the resolution of the image change. So, at the end of the story, the classificator, the machine learning approach, can reduce the accuracy. In this case, it's tricky because you want to collect a lot of data by reducing the consumption and reducing the data storage, but at the same time, you can lose information. When you can lose information, I would say better a higher frequency. So you can work a little bit more on how to transfer the data. So, for example, in our wearable using cardiology, the data are directly streamed to the smartphone. So it consumes a lot, but we reduce the data loss in terms of quantity of data. So we can stream up to 1 gigabyte of data. So that the sample rate is higher and the information containing the signal are higher.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So, Professor Carlo, we have come to the end of this session. So, thank you so very much for giving such a wonderful, insightful talk and sparing time with us. Hope we and all participants are benefited with your wonderful talk, and we expect the similar kind of talk in the future also. So, once again, on behalf of my institute, IITRAM, on behalf of organizer of this national workshop, especially the coordinator, co-coordinator, Dr. Rahul Kumar, I would like to thank you once again. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thanks a lot. So we may leave.
Bye.
Bye. Now we can move for the next one.
Hello. Deepak sir, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are very much audible. Just
So Dr. Deepak, can we go ahead with your talk? So before your talk, we would like to introduce you with our participant first. So there is your brief introduction.
Now, as we move forward, it's my pleasure to introduce our next distinguished speaker, Deepak Sharma. Deepak Sharma is boundlessly curious individual currently pursuing his research as PMRF Fellow at the Center for Nano Science and Engineering, ISC Bangalore. He is delving into innovative research endeavors under the main supervision of Professor Navakanta Bhatt. He holds a Bachelor of Technology in ECE with first class distinction from Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Engineering, Pune. Deepak Sharma develops bio-inspired electronic noses in integrating semiconductor technology, advanced materials, and neuro-orbit computing. His PhD research focused on high-precision gas sensors, AI-driven analysis, and energy-efficient memory-star arrays. His work to journals like Nature, Nature Communications, and Advanced Materials advances electronic nose technology for personalized medicine. Today he will be presenting on the topic Breathomics and Beyond, transforming personalized medicine with the electronic nose. Now let's extend a warm and enthusiastic welcome to Deepak Sharma.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I am truly honored to be part of this conference, and a very good afternoon to everybody. So can I get a small hint at how much time I only have, because I was asked 1 hour presentation, and if I take that, so I might take some of your lunch time. So yeah, I'll expedite myself.
If you make curtail for 45 minutes, it would be fine.
I will try to do so,
Yeah.
but maybe just 5 or 10 minutes before the end time of presentation, anyone can interrupt me, so I'll just
Yeah.
go more fast.
Okay, thanks.
So, my title of my presentation today is Platformics and Beyond, Transforming Personalized Medicine with Electronic Notes. So, over the last 5 years, I have spent my day and night in developing olfactory system in an artificial context, and that we will be seeing today from scratch. I mean, I'll try to not make any assumption. I hope that the audience is from the diverse background. So manifestation of my presentation is the olfactory system, mammalian olfactory system, the way how we smell the odor. We also want our machine to sniff those odor molecules and what that sniffing, and how can we get benefit from that sniffing, that we will see in upcoming slides. There was one study that was published in Science and later it was published in Nature News that shows that our human nose can detect 1 trillion odors, and the diversity of sensors or the receptors we have is around 400 type of different categories and their combinations. And if we see the 3D area of all these receptors, that is housing 6 million sensors in our brain, that is around 10 centimeters square. So we also aim to go in the similar directions which nature has gifted us. So by developing a large sensor array, we will try to emulate the behavior which we are having in our daily schedule. That we can smell coffee, tea, or any vegetables. So we also want actually to do so. So let's start. So this is how the chain is completed in the natural systems. We have odor molecules that are received at olfactory epithelium and later it is collected at olfactory bulb, and this high dimensional processing is happening in the brain. Yeah, our brain sends signal, yeah, this is that odor. And in similar context, we have also developed our system by the large sensor gas array. The signals are generated. There was some pre-processing done to eradicate the possibilities of noise and other interferences, and then later the pattern was recognized for this particular odor. And yeah. So this is a thought process we had way back in 2021 post-COVID, but the implementation went like that. So this is a chamber and we have gas sensor array. In the laboratory, we are mixing multiple gases, and on this sensor array, after mixing of all these gases, we are asking basically two questions from our machine. So one question is that you leak the gases that is unknown to me, and my system will be telling me things. One is that how many gases are present in the mixture and what is their specific concentration of that particular gas in the mixture. So these two questions we will be continuously asking in the today's presentations, and for that we started with a supervised learning. So we gave this high dimensional sensor data to the neural networks, and we did two basic things, right? The classification and regression. Classification is this discrimination of all the gases molecules in the mixture, and regression is for the quantification of the specific odor in that mixture. And of course, yeah, I developed one more sensors along with Dr. Rahul, who is present there. That's ultra-fast humidity sensors in 2021. And that also we published. So the response and recovery kinetics of this sensor was very unique and novel. Need of the art. As we see in our surrounding, we are cutting so many trees. There are many factories coming out. In the home also, inside apartment, quality of the air which we are inhaling, that also need to be monitored. So coming to some numbers, so some studies shows by WHO that says around 7 million people leave this planet every year because of less hygiene air, inhaling of less hygiene air. And this environmental pollution or the less quality air is basically that manifests from the greenhouse gases, around 25% causes that. Another case is that we can monitor the ripening and plant health. They also emit gases. If we can do so, our next evolution in agriculture also can happen. And the last one is if we see post-COVID around 20, I think this report came in 2021 from Government of India, ICMR report. So 45% of 8 million OCPD deaths, they were because of these timely analysis and that. So we could not give them proper infrastructure. So among these 8.4 lakh crores that were reported because of the proper machine and diagnostic tools were not accessible to the people of India. So we could have saved them if we would have proper infrastructure. It is many government initiatives are happening, but yeah. So can we take a common call that that is revolving around us with some severe problem? So one common solution we have is just the detection of odor molecules or the gas molecules that is in our environment, in our surroundings, and we can cater, or we can even start to cater these challenges which are long-standing challenges in very smart and effective way, energy efficient way. So my talk today will be the development of gas sensor array and the possible application to the breath-based diagnostic. So I will be developing, I'll be showing the energy efficient way to do this electronic or artificial olfaction and how it can be projected to the breath-based diagnostics. So breath-based diagnostics is that we just fixate on this sensor array and there will be changes in current and output will be some some pattern will be generated, and from that pattern we will be able to say with proper confidence that the person is diagnosed with so and so disease or person is healthy. So that we will see as we go along. So in the interest of time, I'm skipping this. There is a nice comparison between the biological and electronic nodes that we have seen graphically. There was one more comprehensive study came out. So there are many ways to diagnose these diseases, and among all those techniques, 34% of these diseases can be diagnosed with a breath only. So it holds significant amount of portion, weightage. And based on these volatile organic compounds, these can be mapped with many, these breath can be mapped with many VOCs, and these are the biomarkers that are mapped to those particular VOCs or the mixture of VOCs. Not only one VOC can tell you that you are diagnosed with that disease. Selectivity issue comes in practice, but if we have multiple VOCs and we generate the correlation index, so our confidence level in the detection goes very high. So again, we are asking two things in this non-invasive breath-based diagnostics. One is a classification and regression. So when we exhale out, so there are more than 3,000 number of known volatile organic compounds which is present in our breath. Our goal will be to segregate certain VOCs from that breath first. And second question will be asking that after that segregation of VOC, how much concentration this particular odor is having. And if we can answer those two questions, we can answer that a person is healthy or a person is having diabetes or a person is having lung cancer or jaundice. Okay. Going forward, that we discussed. So the basic part, the backbone of the electronic nose is a sensor array, and that's in our natural system, that's our mammalian olfactory system. We have many receptors. So those receptors are replaced in our technology with a large sensor arrays. There are many type of sensors which are out there that mimics that sniff these gaseous molecules in real time. Metal oxide based sensors, piezoelectric pressure sensors, MOSFET, optical sensors, every of these tech has their own pros and cons. So my reason of interest today will be on chemiresistive based sensors. They are pretty simple, two terminal diode. Their fabrication route is pretty simple. So we'll be going ahead with these chemiresistive sensors today. So the first biomarkers which we have here is carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide is silent killer, not only the biomarker, if it leaks inside the foam or a parking space, I mean within some 10 to 15 minutes, maybe it attacks our internal systems and person dies. Uh, this gas don't react with this gas is an odorless, don't react with our internal systems, so we don't get whether it is leaked or not directly. It's a binary component. If the person is alive or person is dead. So it's very crucial to detect these gases for environmental. And again for the infants, if they'll then neonatal jaundice also can be predicted. They cannot speak, they cannot give other expression, but yeah, they are exhaling breath and tell that yeah, they are having the uh, symptoms of neonatal jaundice in very early stage. Skipping all these other motivations related to the environments in interest of time. So this is the flow that we practice in our daily routine to fabricate these standalone sensors. We clean the substrate, coat the photoresist, and then do the lithography, deposit the metal, and then lift off. So by now, our sensor is ready. And this we can make multiple copies of all these sensors in a cross architecture, and we get a large sensor array like this. So yeah, that was a solution to, and all these receptors which I have developed or I have developed along with my other colleagues, so that were all based on the solution chemistry. Some were from hydrothermal based, or liquid phase exfoliation, solvothermal, and many other techniques. This is an experimental setup to calibrate these sensors, to understand the response and recovery kinetics of these sensors. From here we are mixing these gases and purging into the chamber and measuring here. These are a standalone sensor, one sensor at a time. But if we have 64 sensors at a one go, I have developed my own customized mixed signal front end for that, so that we can excite it and acquire the data at the same time. And yeah, let's go ahead. So the basic working principle of these candle resistive sensor is that we have similar kind of structure that we have fabricated using standard CMOS route. So these are interdigitated electrodes, a complex structure. We excite some voltage here, DC voltage here, and then we can see that this is an open circuit here. But the moment when we dispense any material on top of these will start conducting. So the 1 volt, and so there is a connection, those connection happens. And when there is a this is your baseline current, so then that is to check that how conducting the film. And when we introduce the gaseous molecules on these, there is a charge transport happens. So gas molecules either can donate electrons or either can accept electrons. Two things can happen. And based on that, we get some output characteristics, that is again current. So at this point, we are purging gas, and here we are getting some data. And this data is our reason of interest in that. So for high dimensional array, so we will be getting multiple data I, and those will be fitting into machine learning algorithms and again classifying and quantifying. These are some figure of merits that I am keeping. We extensively characterize individual sensors before putting into the array for the compatibility match. So our goal here is that if one sensor is for carbon monoxide, other sensor should be for ammonia, then acetone, then your hydrogen disulfide, SO2, or for any targeted approach. In interest of time, I am skipping these characterizations, as I was told that audience is from pharmacy and biotechnology. Many of these things goes counsel. So these are the hysteresis curve here. So that is a current versus time, and here we are characterizing or the change, and we are changing the concentration, how our sensor is behaving. We can see that with respect to concentration, there is a monotonic change in response percentage. And the lowest limit of detection of these solution process made standalone sensors are 1 parts per billion, and these are much better than the commercial available sensors or the earlier reported sensors. And one more thing I wanted to highlight here, that all the sensors which I developed at the course of my thesis was based on the room temperature of patients. We are not exciting we are not giving any extra heating energy or so forth. So repeatability of sensors goes like that, response and recovery time, and it is very important to characterize these sensors in varied environmental conditions. So we change the relative humidity of the environment and we characterize it. Still, we could see that there is a change in response percentage. Although the value was low because many of the active sites that sensor had were occupied with water molecules, but yeah, still we could detect the carbon monoxide at 2 ppm in the varied environment humidity levels. This is a log scale, and here you could see the carbon monoxide is dominant gas among other available gases which are available in laboratory. This sensor shows promising results over 2 months. Around 2 months, we captured it around 7 to 10% of the decrement happened. And this shows our benchmark plot. So these star marks is our work, and that is at room temperature, and these are the earlier reports. That shows we have outperformed this territory from the parts per billion to ppm level without giving any extra heating energy when it comes to the response percentage. This study is under review with Nature Communication. So the second receptor we developed for with the MXCs and quantum dots, here the credit goes to Dr. Ayan Pal for helping me with the synthesis. And these are some characterizations, and again, this is how our individual sensor looks like at I think around 1 mm square of the active area, and the minimum feature of this sensor was 5 micrometer. So there were some other controlled study we did as we went ahead. Again, this is our the benchmark plot of that. We see the response percentage. So for low parts per million concentrations, it exhibits very high. And this is how the selectivity goes. So the dominant selectivity of this binary heterosexual for sulfur dioxide. This sensor I developed with Dr. Rahul back in 2021, where the main goal was to decorrelate the fluctuations that we have in the environment in real time. And as we all know that these environmental conditions gives very you can say big change in the response percentage output that we saw already in the RH versus response curve. So it is very crucial to decorrelate or mathematically compensate those effects so that we can extract out the absolute output from the individual sensor, and then only we will be able to detect any disease. Because if we exhibit a human can have around 70 to 80% of the RH content. So this was a route that we followed. It was liquid phase exfoliation. And again, using this water bubbler setup, we introduced controlled humidity levels in the sensing chamber. This is our sensor, and all the fluctuations, relative humidity fluctuations, was monitored by commercially available BAD280 sensor. That was a Bosch sensor. That was a golden standard here. And we use these mass flow controller to accurately pass the gas flow. 500 SCCM we maintain here total. These are some characteristics of relative humidity from minimum 80% to 90%. Again, we are seeing some monotonic change. Repeatability of this sensor was pretty good. Over some 3 months, the sensor was behaving well. This sensor was given for indigenous development of RF sensors in ISRO laboratory. So the basic concept of the breath-based diagnostic goes here like that. So this is the sensor and the person is exhaling here and we are getting some change in current or spikes here for that. And these information, if we can pass it to the network, neural network, let's say for one or two sensors, you can say that yeah, gas is leaked or not, provided your other mixture is not present. But when you have 1,000 number of mixtures of gases, relative humidity is also fluctuating, it is very hard to comment on the part whether this gas is leaked. Your response might come from other factors as well. So, yeah, here we are only measuring the relative humidity content that is present in the air. Or that we have incorporated into large sensor array. Okay, so there are a variety of sensors. People have already started working on this technology, and their accuracy here goes like that. Mean square error is 0.01, the minimum. So our goal is, can we go lesser than that? Or if you see the accuracy, overall accuracy is 95% or so when the mixture comes. So let's have some target here. So we want to build a system where your classification accuracy from the mixture should be greater than 95% or so, and the standard deviation or the quantification error in that mixture again should be less than 1 E-. And we also want to detect many gases at one time instant, not one gas per time. You mix the gases, you will sense all the gases simultaneously with their specific concentration. So, moving forward, so that was the crossbar array certification first did using the CMOS standard route. Individual area here was broadcasted and further running at 100 degrees C, and then it was wire bonded and interface with the customized signal. So here we have around 16 sensors. So we tested around 10 sensors were relatively giving better results. So this is a hardware item that we use for some other applications also, that becomes the computing part, that is analysis, neuromorphic computing. So, but it is equally valid to characterize any device, be a photodiode, your gas sensor, pressure sensors, any device where we need to excite it and acquire the data. This we can use it. So in the signal chain, the first part here is the digital to analog converter, then the high slew rate buffer to minimize the loading effects. Then we have analog switches, and here is your device comes. So in the one channel we are showing one device, but this chip was around 64 by 64, 4096 number of devices. I made it in the clean room. That was interfaced here. Another set of analog switches, and then current was converted to voltage using transimpedance amplifier, and the digital data was further collected using ADC and microcontroller. Okay, now stepping back again to the sensor array. So what we had one timestamp that at this particular time instant, this gas is leaked, this mixture is leaked, and we have variety of sensors, sensor 1, sensor 2, and then relative humidity data, the temperature surrounding that, and what all gases you are mixing at that instantaneous time, and what is the specific concentration. So this is a data set, this is a protocol which we were having while we were collecting this data. And again, the very two basic questions will be asking that you tell us that how many gases are present, that's for classification and quantification. In the quantifications, we have pulled our labels back here because we are now in the supervised learning phase. So after collection of data, we did some scaling because many of the sensor current were in nanoamps, some were in the milliamps in the MXing case, and some were in microamps. So our model convergence was not really good with all these things. So all these sensor current were mapped in certain values. So this is a normalization. That's the first step of pre-processing. We remove some outliers. So if you are, let's say, giving 1 volt of a DC voltage, nowhere your current will not go in negative. And if you are having any negative values in the data set, that means that is an artifact. So we are removing that so that we don't want any, we don't want our model to learn in a bad way. We want to give really good data to model so that learning goes very accurate and in precise manner. So that's why we are doing all this circus before implementing our algorithm. The third step is imputation. Many a times you have large sensor array, in the customized board, let's say among 16 sensors, you can have data of 10 sensors, but 4 sensor data might have been skipped or some latency might have come, and in that case we are none. So in that cases we are again doing the imputation process to remove that. Again, we are asking two questions from our machine that to segregate the number of gases in the data and quantify that. But how the machine will understand that? We need to tell all those things in a very particular format to the machine. So here we are doing the one-port encoding. So in the binary format, we are teaching machine that if your sequence is 100 in the gas mixture of these 3 gases, then only H2S is green. If it is NO2 010, then NO2 is green. And if it is in the C2H4 001, so this is how multi-port encoding works. So we are teaching that our machine like a child in a way where the machine can understand our expectation. So these are categorical variables to your binary network. After pre-processing, this is how your data is looked like. Native data is there, many data current, and then humidity levels, temperature, concentration at this particular second. This concentration 1.25 ppm of carbon monoxide was peaked. So this is how we did it. Okay, so now it comes to the basic building block of these neural networks, artificially neural networks. A novel, last Nobel Prize was also given in a similar domain directly for the development of these networks. So here we have input signals, sensor current in our case, synaptic weights that we are randomly generating in first shot, but in supervised learning we know that this should be our output. So any random weight which we can assume is a, and multiplication of these input signal goes here and sum together, and an activation function here. Activation function is to take a call whether to pass the this one here or not. So it will go in 0 and 1 fashion. And let's say if you are not getting output based on your expectation, or if there is an error, we will go back to fine tune this, like again come back, and this forward and backward this loop goes. So backward propagation is another error minimization algorithms which we use here. This is how the semantic of our neural network for classification happened. So we have all the sensor current at the input level, relative humidity levels, temperature in the surrounding, and which goes back to the hidden layers, and the output layers we had around 10 gases. So this model will play the weights, all these synaptic weights will have some optimized values for these set of gases in that particular window of exposure. So are all the gases exposure was till 5 ppm. 1 parts per billion is 5 ppm. This is how the model training went. So based on many epochs. So epoch is that we are starting from here, going here and coming back here. So that is called one epoch. And again you will go, that is called second epoch. And the number of epoches are in every epoch we are you can say minimizing the error, and that you can see here. And the accuracy, the basic accuracy of the model with artificial neural network is 92%, but I developed some other memory-based network, LCM networks, where it went to more than 96%. And this is how the mean square error was, this came down. So here, I wanted to again highlight one thing. I think I missed that part. So this both are data. This data was split into three things. One was the training data, which we will give to machine that hey, this is the input and this is the output we want. And machine will fine tune all the weights for us. And we will check in real time whether the machine is learning good or not, or whether it is diverging. So this is a validation data. And we have kept some other data. So this training, validation and testing, this splitting was done randomly. And this testing data that machine has not seen yet, that we will be giving and will be asking that now you tell that how many gases were there. So this is how this terminology went. So here is your training and validation loss. This is a confusion matrix to understand how that's on the test data set that machine is seeing the first time. It has been trained on some randomly splitted data set, and now we are passing the test data set into the network, and we are asking again one question that will tell that how many gases are present. And it is telling that among 100 instances, 97 times it will say that carbon monoxide is leak. 3 times machine is giving that it might not be carbon monoxide, it might be air. Okay, so this is how we are understanding the detection our machine is giving that probability might be low there. So therefore this gas, NO2 gas, and there are some false detection there. So NO2 we are leaking, but many a time it is understanding that as a air. For this sensor, the signal to noise ratio was not extremely high at parts per billion. That's why this false detections are done. That was the classification part. Now coming to the quantification part. One more parallel model we ran. And we have again these sensors RH and that. But now we need to tell that which gas you want to detect. So there, in last case, that we wanted to detect all gases, but now we need to tell to this model that tell the concentration of this particular gas. So that's why we are putting the label here, and in hidden layer, and here in the output we have only one layer, and this concentration will go from 0 to 5. This is how the convergence of learning curves goes. And this we can see that these are the two concentrations that was present in that gaseous mixtures, and this was a predicted concentration by our machine model. So overall, MSC, this is 3.9 E minus 2. So around 20 parts per billion for your 3 to 4 ppm. If you are leaking 3 or 4 ppm of gas, then model or our machine can detect those gas with the standard calculation of 3E minus 3, and when you convert that to parts per billion, it's 20 parts per billion. So 3 order less you can detect. So that kind of accuracy we are having here. Okay, everything is fine. But do we understand that all these things are coming at very high cost? I developed these into GPU and many models was optimized and yeah, it will do that in energy efficient way, like our printers. So this takes me to the second part of my presentation, that is the computation, the retail computation. So if we see the trend here, so till 2010, and after 2010, if we see the power consumption of the training compute time that gone massively high, because everyone is just running their images in ChatGPT and model, their GPUs are melting, they are crying. So we are consuming a lot of energy here. If we see that ChatGPT 4 training model, only to train the data set, they spent around $100 million and 1.287 gigawatt hour. And this power was sufficient to power up 120 homes in the United States for an entire year. But that we have already consumed just to train one model. And there are many such models running Copilot and Gemini, right? So they all are equally powerful. So can you do something about it? Let's take inspiration from our brain that as all these learning, many faces comes in front of us. We taste many different recipes in a day, but we learn that in real time, and our brain takes all those learning, all those tasks in 20 watts of power. And if we understand, although we don't understand our brain, but with a limited qualitative understanding, if we go, so two things comes in spotlight. One is a neuron and another is a synapse. So my upcoming some slides will be based on the development of the synaptic behavior. And if we can emulate these devices which are inspired from brain, definitely this power can be brought down. Going forward, so there are some problems we are having, we are facing in our tech world. Energy efficiency is one thing, and another is data security. If you are excelling on these electronic nodes, you don't want your diabetes levels or your other biological parameters go out to the blood and someone can hack them and they can come in indirect way manipulate you. So we don't want all those privacy. We do everything on board. That's another issue which is having, and all these they are trained in the cloud. So data privacy, the chances of data privacy is highly there. So can we do something here? So we have developed crossbar here, but when we go very high, so as we saw our brain is having 86 billion neurons. 86 billion, and one neuron is having thousands of synaptic connections. And if we were to emulate all these parallel architecture, then yeah, people have tried it. The project was Human Brain Project. It cost I think more than 1 billion euros or billion euros. And we are nowhere close to this efficiency which nature has gifted us. So it is a high time to think about that what can be done. So today I am trying to address some of these by brain inspired computing. The first thing I'll be developing, I'll showing here the master array. Then you will see that we will go to the root of all these issues, that is a compute operation, and we will see that how it can be minimized, and again the peripheral hardware to control and excite them in real time. This is how the traditional architecture, AI architecture works. You have input signals, synaptic weights multiplied together, right? And this is how it goes. This is your memory, and here is the processor sets. This is a von Neumann architecture. X naught x1 is your data. This is your weight matrix. So first thing is they get offloaded into your CPU, and then it is multiplied, and then it is added together, and then it is cleared CPU. That is a von Neumann bottleneck. We have seen that are all laptops and which are coming nowadays, their maximum frequency is capped to around 4.5 or 5 gigahertz, and it is because of that the processor is powerful to do that thing, but this data going back and forth, that is killing all the duty of all the processors. So we don't have much hope to increase that frequency with the existing architecture. Another thing is one is the data movement, another is the dot product operation. So this is happening one by one, you can see. First is this and this and this. This is happening with a particular time. So there are here in these all the neural networks, two main operations are happening: multiplication and addition. And multiplication, doing the multiplication task in these processors is a killing factor. So they consume most energy out of it. Addition can be done in relatively less, let's say, compute energy. So if we understand where we exactly stand today, so this is your CPU time operation. How much number of time step your CPU is taking to do certain tasks. So if we take this as an example, so we are lying somewhere here. That is your order of n square complexity. If your input is n, let's say 64, and 64 by 64 is your this one. So to complete that thing, you need 64 square, 4096 number of time steps in it. So x square is your dimension of matrix. So can we do something here? So today I will focus on bringing this time complexity to order of 1. That is the minimum possible theoretical we can assume here. So my complexity reduction in upcoming slides will be order of n square to order of 1. Let's go ahead.
Sir,
Okay,
we
so-
might want to wind up in the next 10 minutes. So,
Sure. So our inspiration from brain was building neurons and synapse. So I'm building synapse here. It's a synapse is a device which can store information, and in the artificial or in our nanotechnology world, we have memories with that. That's the same. So it's a two-terminal device where the device, two-terminal device, and this is your top electrode, this is your bottom electrode, and between these two electrodes, the material is sandwiched, and this material is remembering how much current that it was allowing, how much current was going through it, and this is what our brain also does. If someone is hammering our hand, we will be remembered that, oh, something has happened, pain is there. So that remembering property is emulating the thing. And so this was a Ruthenium complex which was designed and synthesized by Dr. Shanti, who was a postdoc in Department of Science. The symbol of our list goes like that. This is the IV characteristics. Here we can see the handful number of free states. So when we say free states, it is redox. So if we take two adjacent molecules, one molecule is 3 electron reduced, another is 1 electron reduced. In the chain of all the millions of molecules, take out molecule and understand what is their interaction. So another is your 1-1 state and 0-0. When we say 1-1 state, so this can be mapped with your information. It can be your image pixels, it can be your gas sensor response smell, it can be your pressure sensing response, or it can be your photodiode response, anything it can. Any information that can be encoded to these mathematical numbers. But is this sufficient to tackle the challenges that the humanity is having or the AI world is having? The answer is no. We want many number of states. Here we have only 3 states. So this was a quasi-static measurement where the voltage was switched from 0 to 4 volt and again 0 and again -4 and again 0. But again, the manifestation of these switching came from the thermodynamics. But if we go beyond thermodynamics, then there is a territory of molecular kinetics, and we controlled 1,000 number of states in this regime. And this is what we are showing here. So to that device, the top and bottom electrode, if you are giving one pulse, we are taking to the 4 nanosiemens of the level. If you are giving one more pulse, if you are giving 3 nanosecond pulses, will be taken to the third level, and similar goes for the thousand of other levels. So this conductance variations went from 200 nanosiemens to 5.9 millisiemens, and the individual step size was around 200 nanosiemens, and the total number of states here are 16,520. So more than 14-bit information we could store in one device, individual device, and that's what we need here. So our these neural networks, they are having pretty big or frequent change in weights and depth, and we want linearity for that, and our characteristics are linear here. So if you just apply one punch, you'll be taken to that information level. That is one of the desired rate in neuromorphic device or a synaptic behavior. Another is the endurance. How long you can reuse that. You just write it something, read it, erase it, and again reuse that. So up to 10 to the power 11 cycles, the device was not showing much degradation. Up to 11 days, the information that was stored, if you write it today and after some 1 or 2 weeks to come, the information will be still intact, that will be there. So this is a retention study. Another is a self-selector. It is allowing current to flow from top electrode to bottom electrode in one direction. So it is blocking the reverse current, and this is solving one of the other common problem that we have in the crossbar architecture, that is sneak paths. So because of this characteristics, we eradicate the possibility in the architecture and could scale it in with minimum time complexity or minimum fabrication complexity. So this is how this is your bottom electrode. Again, the film was encoded, and top electrode again cold. So that was electrical equivalent model. Using 4-probe measurement, we found that line resistance per block across flows are 0.46, column 0.39. And in all the, you can say, in all the compute operations, these values were compensated. Okay, the final comparison here. This is how your software was behaving. So in the synchronous manner, with reference to one high frequency clock, all these things were happening. These were multiplied first. This one, that x1, x2 into w2, xn into wn. It was taking order of n square complexity, if you remember. And this is how things happens in the neuromorphic or hardware. So you have one vector and you have another vector, g vector. Either it is x or any real world information can be mapped to the voltage levels, and these weights that can be mapped to your conductance levels. Here, basic 2 things are happening that we studied in your 12th class or 10th standard. One is a Ohm's law and one is a Kirchhoff current law. So if there is a on introduction of voltage difference across these devices, some current flows it, right? So this V into G, that will give you IR. So this is your Ohm's law that is happening here. So in one time step, this vector is multiplied with this. And this is the concept of in-memory computation. So in our brain also, things happen at one particular location. In our CPU, memory is different, your CPU is different. So in parallel architecture, let's do it. So this is your voltage and a big matrix. This voltage is multiplying with this matrix, and you are getting output in one time shot. And this is the scalable architecture which we saw a customized board here. So from here, all the real world information is coming, that is mapped to your voltage. Another set of information that is mapped to conductance, and in one time step, this information 1 is multiplied to information 2, and you are getting output. And this dot product we are solving from order of n square dot of 1. So this can go in complement to the existing digital hardware, so that all the matrix multiplication can be offloaded to the neuromorphic chip, and other addition and things can be done in the digital hardware. We can solve some energy out of here. This is my last slide here. So here we see that this voltage or maybe this real world information can be anything as arbitrary as we can think. This also can be anything. To demonstrate that versatile behavior, we multiplied many matrix here, triangular, and stochastics, Hermitian, right? And one matrix was mapped with the voltage, and another matrix was mapped with conductance. And the standard deviations was getting around less than 300 nanometers. And the signal to noise ratio, the output was around 12.5 dB. And this basic fundamental operations can be utilized to do discrete Fourier transform, artificial neural network that we studied for the crossbar or the electronic noise or n number of algorithms. That's a DFT algorithms, IDFT algorithms. Here we have it's a DFT algorithms, random signal that is mapped with the real and imaginary. We can see that overlay of that crossbar and FFT function, the way how your software is doing and the way how your hardware is doing. So both are overlaid to that. We are not in very big difference or vicinity. Our neuromorphic chip can emulate that same thing which our software has done over many decades, but with a very minimum time, in almost one time step. So this image was downloaded from NASA that was collected using James Webb Telescope. This data was extracted amplitude and phase separately, and here amplitude pixels were mapped to the real voltage, and the DFT, if you understand DFT, there is one fiddle factor. Those DFT coefficient was mapped into the conductance, and we did the IDFT. So three planes R, G, and B, they were reconstructed on the chip, neuromorphic chip, and we could get the efficiency of 74 or the SNR of 74 dB with compared to your digital computer. But here the order of complexity came from order of n squared to order of 1. It was much faster than the digital. There are other applications which can be explored for the electronic nodes, healthcare, environmental monitoring, just to check the quality of food which we are having, security and drug detection at airports and that. So yeah, these are some of the study which went out, and I'm grateful for the help which I got from my colleagues. Acknowledgement, I acknowledge the fully support of my advisor Anpart and Dr. Shitos and Dr. Rahul to give to craft the initial plan to go ahead with electronic nodes and other. Thank you, and I would be happy to take any questions if you have.
If you guys have any questions, you can ask me.
Hello, sir. I would like to. I have a question on this system, neuromorphic system that you have proposed for matrix multiplication. I think this is big next stage because this system has a lot of advantages in terms of computation and power. Have you any data on its implementation on edge devices? And is there any improvements or disadvantages in the training accuracy?
Well, yeah, it's a very good question. So when you think about these edge devices, so I can give context of the edge computing here in a very short here. So the modeling part or these neural network, all these computations which we were doing on the GPU. How about if we can do everything on board on the hardware? That is the next step. Even we are working on that. But if you see the 14-bit or 16-bit, or maybe anyone who are from coding background, they can understand if we reduce the bit precision of these numbers less, then your accuracy will be lost. You cannot have these 97 and 98% of accuracy. It needs many other optimizations that we are yet to explore. Uh, yeah, accuracy will be down here, but your advantage of the energy efficiency, that will be again higher if you do everything on the edge. We don't want all things to be computed. We need to expect only useful things and then perform that. So the way how it will go in upcoming some months, in my project it is, so whatever models we have trained, so that model, that parameters that will be extracting it and putting into the microcontroller, STM microcontroller as a wrapper function, and then in real time, whatever gas leak is happening. So microcontroller or these neuromorphic architectures, they will accept that data, process the necessary data, and give the output. And one other thread is that how about if we want to train that? So training on the hardware, that is really difficult task. So software training still is the upper hand, maybe we see as of today. We can do that training, but it will not be 95 or 96% of accuracy. But when I'm telling that it is not on the MNIST dataset, it is on the practical dataset in the laboratory, or you can say CFAR dataset. So on those datasets, it will be really difficult to train the data on hardware, and this can be done.
Thank you for answering. I would love to see you work something more like large-scale implementations in upcoming time.
Yeah, please. Anytime, I think everyone is welcome to trigger or criticize or whatever. If you have any small silly questions, just shoot and mail. I try my best to respond or at least convey whatever I have learned over the last 5 years from the Indian experiment.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Sir, great lecture. Sir, I wanted to ask the sensor that you developed, so that can that sensor be applied to a person who has a habit of smoking just for the quantification of tobacco smoke exposure?
Yeah, it can be done. Yeah, and eventually that was a real goal of the electronic nose. So this concept was proposed way back in some 1980s or so, after the solid state sensors came out in existence. So when a person is having the frequent smoking, so the VOC content, or there are some biomarkers of that particular person that will go out of the window. So our electronic nose system don't know what exactly it is. We need to put our machine intelligence here. We can collect the data, all the gaseous molecules we can collect, and make the decision that if this person is having tobacco, or let's say for instance if in a breath among all these 3,000 odd VOC odors, if the acetone or ketone level goes greater than 2 ppm, person is having stage 2 diabetes. If it is having this gas greater than X ppm, person is having that diabetes. All those data is in pretty mature state. The biologist has done that. So all those methods can. In fact, there are some clinical trials people have started in UK and Israel. India is yet to achieve those maybe clear those trials, or government takes some time to accept the new tech. But yeah, we are working on it, and certainly we can detect tobacco, lung cancer, or you name the disease, we will detect. I think I showed you that there are, I think, these deadly diseases can be detected in very early stage. not in the, if you are detecting a disease, diagnosing it in the stage 4 cancer, right, gone, the game is over. No one can do anything. But these sensors has capacity to keep the gene sensitivity, sniff that you can say patterns at very early stage 1 or stage 2 that things can be taken with well care. So it's possible, it will happen.
So, sir, when a person exhales, as you said, more than 3,000 VOCs get. If this can the sensor be developed very specific and very sensitive to one particular biomarker, which is only related to nicotine compounds?
That also can be done. So if you see, maybe there are two parts, maybe, or maybe there are many parts, but let's make it two parts. One is your fabrication of standalone sensor. Well, let's say if you are having sensor 100, right now, I have put ammonia sensor also, I have put H2S for halitosis also, I have put acetone for diabetes also, I have put NO2 also. But if you are very specific that you want to detect only tobacco or tuberculosis, that kind of stuff, all those 100 sensors can be fabricated. Those are giving maybe in the vicinity of that. So it need not to be definite, it can be anything. You define your thought process, our machines will do that. It's possible. You make the repeated copies of that, you can say that particular gases with direct concentration. Although it might not be very, you can say, good dimensional data, but yeah, we will have added advantage. Our goal is to detect that particular disease, we can do that.
Love to see that products also. Thank you so much.
Well, yeah.
Anybody else having any questions?
Thank you for the insightful session, sir. As we conclude this insightful session, let us take a moment to express our gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Deepak Sharma, for their valuable time and knowledge. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well,
You may now proceed for lunch. We will meet at L402 at 2 p.m.
No, not from PM.